people want, all of that good stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I hope you learned something. All right. So all this budget stuff is good and everything, but what can I actually do, right? Like, what are some actual steps? Like, I'm a small business, I don't have much money, I have some time, not a lot of time, because once again, I'm still a small business. So what is some cheap or inexpensive forms of advertising or getting your word out there? So obviously low cost, not always going to be super reliable, and you just have to see what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what do you like doing, what don't you like doing. We'll go over some misconceptions as well, of course, like we always do, and we'll start off by saying why familiarity helps a lot. So familiarity, people see your logo, see your face, and know what you're about, know what you're talking about, and that can really, really help you. There's a lot of psychology behind that. Someone sees something over and over again, they like it more. That actually happens with faces. You'll see the prettier people are more symmetrical in their look, and you actually like your own face more than other people like it. Typically, in general, because you look at it so much, it creates a bias there. Of course, there's other biases that influence that, but let's think about why familiarity is so important, right? Probably butchered the spelling, but why is it so important? So think about your neighbor, right? Your good one, hopefully. Think about your neighbor, right? How often have you seen his face? When you see his face, do you know what's going on? Do you know who he is? You know what I mean? And then think about a stranger, right? You have no idea who they are. You don't know if you could trust them. You don't know anything about them, right? So you have that exposure to it with your neighbor that you like them more, even if you don't like them. You know what I mean? It's a very powerful effect. So if you want to look at more into it, there's the mere exposure, and which goes along with it, the availability effect. So that's more like the psychological part of it, if you're interested in that at all. The mere exposure and the availability heuristic. Heuristics are just shortcuts for the mind. All right, so let's move on from all that, why familiarity is important. Now let's think about frequency over reach. So we don't really care about reaching like 1 million people. I mean, obviously that'd be great and everything, but if we can reach 10,000 people 10 times, I would much rather have that, because then they're going to see our face and know us, right? So, think about it this. So, quantity over views, right? Not quality, but over views. You want to have consistent quality, don't get me wrong. Or improve it, you know what I mean? Don't just, keep bad ones. Anyways, the more that people see you, the fewer each time someone new does, or some old one does. So, 1 million, right, new views is less than 10K 10 views, right? Like, this is their 10th viewing for business acquisition, stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you're not spamming somebody, but you're also not, you have enough of a target demographic for your budget. You can look online what is the best. The number's always changing, right? And it depends on your situation. I can't just say, oh, spend $2,000 here and then $3,000. There's no formula for that, right? So Google's profile and partnership are a great free tool. So we'll look at tools here. So Google, what I mean by that, Google Analytics, Google Business, Google, just Google everything. Another really good one is, I talk about it a lot, Ahrefs, right? You can use that to see everything. And then, go with, a flyer, right? They're so expensive, or inexpensive, right, comparatively to internet advertisements. And just realize that your profiles are important, right? If you don't have the profiles, no one's going to see it. And that's what are some really easy free tools, right? It's like setting up a yard sign somewhere. If you don't put them out there, no one's going to see them. What's the point of having them, right? So you want to use as much as you can for as inexpensive as you can, of course. How do we make cheap ads actually work? So how do we make them work? So what are some functional parts? What are some do's, some don'ts? So you want to have the same face for that familiarity, right? You want to have a similar theme and focus, again, for that similarity, because that's what we're focusing on here, right, is the similarities. And then you have that narrow scope, right? So you're specific, but not overly specific. You can really get overly specific there. So we understand that consistency is one of the most important parts in all of this, but especially when it comes to small, cheap ads. So the money pits, right? Where the small budgets get really, really, really big, right? So what can I do about my budget? One really important thing to do is to set a limit on the profile and on the card or the bank or whatever, where you have to approve it before that goes through, because it can really add up really quickly. And you'd rather have it just like stop working than, have a million ads out there and be in debt for forever. All right, so let's go over some myths. Of course it wouldn't be forever, but some myths are you need a big budget to advertise. Not true. You can have small, like, grassroots advertising. It's more difficult, more time consuming, but you can do it. One big ad will put me on the map. That's not true. If you have one ad that like reaches a lot of people, that's okay. But if you have a lot of ads that reach the same group of people, that's even better, because then they know you more. And especially if it's in your target audience, there's that higher chance of them actually seeing it and being like, oh, well, I need that, or I want that, or that's interesting. I'm going to learn more. You know what I mean? Just big ads don't really help. So that goes the same with the reach isn't everything. All the people you reach isn't everything. You should advertise where you see fit, where your time constraints and your budget constraints. You can also advertise just having a social media account and responding to stuff, right? So you also need, you don't need to keep on having fresh, completely new ads, right? Familiarity breeds, not contempt, but, good feelings. That thing's wrong. People like things that they're more familiar to, even if they didn't begin liking them in the first place. Of course, there's other things that go into it. It's not just one thing, but that is a heuristic that we use as well. So now create your own plan, right? Create your cheap local plan. Like I always say, write it out. Always helps. After you're done writing it out, right? Look at your budget. As I said before, budget and your time budget as well. There's a clock. With all of this in mind, what are your goals again? And then who are your local providers? And what are some steps, right? So how are you going to do it? Why are you going to do it? Is there anything that's in a gap? A gap in your plan or whatever? So let's go through everything once more really quickly. Marcus, what do you think about all this stuff, huh? I don't think he cares. So familiarity, sorry. Seeing stuff over and over again. Think about your neighbor versus a stranger. You get that mere exposure effect. You like the familiar face. Hopefully you like your neighbor more than the stranger too, but you know them more so you can trust them a little bit. And then you have the quantity is over the views per video, right? So if you have like a lot of views from a lot of different people, that's not going to send a strong signal to any one of them, right? It's going to be different. So you also want to use those cheap free tools, Google, Ahrefs, and like flyers, right? Those are really cheap. You can get a lot of them for real cheap, or like door to door. It just really depends on your area, all these other factors. What is your priority? So how do we make this work? For cheap local ads, like when you can put your face on it, do that. Make it the same face, make it a similar theme, and make it that narrow scope that can really target those specific people. Your budget should limit, or to keep in your budget so you're not like spending a lot, you should limit both your card and your profile, wherever you have it, to a set amount of money that you're willing to spend, because it can balloon really quickly. Then you want to create your own plan with all of the other factors in mind. If you have any questions, let me know. I would be happy to discuss anything, and I appreciate